by the military-industrial complex.
It could be seen to move violently forward, violently forward, violently forward.
I'm just a patsy.
Let's win there.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAP.
Well, you have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so
Exactly.
that's not so bad.
Exactly.
I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
And we're back. How you doing, George?
Great, Peter. How are you?
Very good. I see that you're in your large, spacious living room there with the black grand piano and the fireplace.
In your mind, AI can make anything true, I guess, but in a space about 1/20th of that size.
Well, me too. So we're all in tight little space. In fact, we're in the boundary of this like rectangle right here, and
yeah,
we're actually two-dimensional. We're actually not in the place where anybody is watching us. We appear as a chimera, a series of dancing pixels on a screen with some audio that trick the mind into believing that we're actually sitting there and speaking straight to you, the
American people, right? Well, the good news is there's a lot of really great, I better play the piano, right? Well, it's sort of a player piano is this idea of AI and AI tools. And where this becomes important is we're fighting the deep state. They've got unlimited budget. They've got all the Hollywood bought out. They've got all the TV networks bought out. And sometimes we've got to fight back with force multipliers, and some of these new AI tools.
Right, and I have a few to show today too. And what's great about what I'm about to show you is that the guy who put these videos together gives you all of the juice. I can steer you towards a video on his channel where he goes step by step and tells you exactly how he made these videos. Now, what he's chosen to do is to make trailers. He's come up with this concept, which is, what if every movie that was ever made was made during the 1950s with that 1950s aesthetic? And then he applies that with AI, and he's created an entire series of these videos. The channel is called Super Panavision 70, and his channel, I'll bring it up in a second, it's called Warden Cinematics. And he's made these videos, but in watching all of these things and going through the list and seeing how he actually does this, I'm starting to think that there's probably a way that we can take a lot of the alternate history of what we know has happened. I'm off the top of my head, I'm thinking of the poisoned loving cup, which is the story of all the Rhodes Scholars coming over and rewriting American history and creating a poisoned loving cup trailer, as it were, that explains to people in a kind of very normie way exactly how our history books all got rewritten. But without further ado, George, would you like to see Dune, the Flintstones? I want to save Dune for last. The Flintstones or the Jetsons first?
You can't go wrong with Flintstone or the Jetsons. Let's try Flintstones.
All right, here we go.
Peaceful Stone Age town called Bedrock. The hum of a simpler time fills the air. Fred, the head of the Flintstones household, stands proudly. Fred's ever-charming wife, Wilma, steps outside, radiating warmth and grace. Not far away, Fred's best friend, Barney, always full of cheer, makes his way over. Betty, Barney's sweet and spirited wife, joins him with a smile that could light up all of Bedrock. Pebbles, Fred and Wilma's little bundle of joy, brings even more life to their Stone Age home. Barney and Betty's little rascal Bam Bam follows closely behind, ready for action. Of course, Dino, the loyal family pet, bounds across the yard. Wilma tends to the house, making any Stone Age home feel cozy and warm. Meanwhile, Fred relaxes in his favorite chair, winding down after a hard day's work at the quarry. Barney, ever the jokester, swings by to share a laugh with his old pal Fred. The two friends share gossip and laughter as they prepare dinner. Pebbles and Bam Bam play in the yard, as usual destroying everything that moves. As the sun sets over Bedrock, the Flintstones and the Rubbles gather for a peaceful evening together. A perfect end to a perfect day.
All right. That's the Flintstones. Here's the Jetsons.
Into the future, where life is faster, funnier, and more futuristic than ever. Meet the Jetsons, the galaxy's most high-flying family. George Jetson, a loving father with a knack for getting into tight spots at Spacely Sprockets. His wife, Jane, balancing home life with the latest gadgets. Their teenage daughter, Judy, always on the cutting edge of fashion and technology. And Elroy, the young genius, constantly tinkering with his next big invention. But that's not all. At home, there's Rosie the robot, keeping things tidy with her sassy attitude. And Astro, the family dog, always ready for some space-age shenanigans. Whether it's flying cars, robot servants, or out-of-this-world adventures, the Jetsons live a life where the future is full of fun and surprises. Zoom through the skies with the Jetsons, where tomorrow's possibilities are today's reality. The Jetsons, coming soon to a theater near you. Get ready for a ride that's truly out of this world.
All right. And last but not least, here's Dune.
In a universe ruled by power, where noble houses vie for control and the sands whisper secrets of ancient prophecies, comes a story of courage, betrayal, and destiny. Welcome to Dune. Meet Paul Atreides, a young heir to House Atreides. Together with his valiant father, Duke Leto, his loyal mentor, Gurney Halleck, and the formidable warrior, Duncan Idaho, Paul faces a deadly game. Sent by the Emperor himself to rule the desert planet Arrakis, Paul and his noble father are stepping into a deadly trap. Arrakis holds the galaxy's most valuable resource, spice, the key to travel between stars. But this barren world is a battleground for power. Enter the cunning Baron Harkonnen, scheming to destroy House Atreides, with his ruthless nephew Feyd-Rautha by his side. As war breaks out and tragedy strikes, Paul must flee into the unforgiving desert with his mother, Lady Jessica, a member of the secretive Bene Gesserit, an ancient order of women with incredible powers. Guided by visions of a mysterious woman, Chani, and Stilgar, the leader of the fierce desert warriors known as the Fremen, Paul must embrace his destiny as the Lisan al-Gaib and rise as a messiah for a people long oppressed. But there's the Emperor's daughter, Princess Irulan. Her beauty and royal power hide secrets that could change Paul's future forever. Will Paul fulfill his destiny, defeat his nemesis Feyd-Rautha, and save the galaxy? Or will the sands of Arrakis bury his fate forever? It's a battle for survival with betrayal, intrigue, and massive sandworms lurking beneath every dune. Coming soon to a theater near you.
So there it is. And George, they put Lady Jessica in there.
I know. I refer to producer Jessica always as Lady Jessica. And now you see how life imitates art. All of a sudden they heard that somewhere in Pacific Palisades, and now look how they jump on it.
Indeed, indeed. So this was all very interesting, and we wanted to kind of go over things. I posted on my Substack for paid members on the Substack 2 super prompts this week that I have been working on. As you know, that I use these prompts to basically organize the notes for my book that I'm researching. And at the same time, I try to put those things up as I'm creating them on Substack. And one of the things, I was showing it to my wife, how I do it. And she became a little frustrated at the amount of cutting and pasting that was required. And so I thought, well, I can fix that. And so I created these things called super prompts. And it's really, there's one for PDF books and there's one for YouTube videos. And what it allows you to do is just to take the transcript from a YouTube video and upload it as a PDF, and I explain how to do that in the posts. And then you put this one super prompt in, and then it runs through a series of routines, one at a time, and it outputs basically a dossier on what's in the video. And I was talking to Matthew Crawford about it this weekend, and Matthew Crawford is going to join me tomorrow to talk about his Kamala Harris dossier. But Matthew Crawford took a look at what I did, and here's what he wrote. He said, "This is a tool that I need to learn to use. I get extremely tired of 2 to 3 hour podcast videos designed to hypnotize or waste time. Peddling 1 or 2 valuable facts that are teased and pushed off every 10 minutes, but could be summarized in a paragraph or 2. People who create, people who create ... and I'm trying to finish it and it's not coming up. Anyway, that was a great hat tip. You know, it's I've had a very interesting week because I've gotten kudos from Richard Grove, I've gotten kudos from Matthew Crawford, and I've gotten kudos from Matt Arrett this week. At the same time that I've been called a 4K dickhead and a coward by other people in comments. So I have to balance these things, you know. It's so it goes in being a public persona.
Well, I can hear the voice or announcer, somewhere near the crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean, near the majestic cliffs of Pacific Palisades, a lonely producer, director / genius works on ways of summarizing the vast amounts of data that we are awash in with YouTube trivial blither. And through his magical orchestration of summarizing tools, create synthesis where no order was before. Join us in this new adventure series as Peter Duke synthesizes oblivion into meaning.
Well, I try. Gosh,
no, it's. I could see a trailer right now coming out of that. It sounds great. And Matthew Arrett, I mean, Matthew Arrett's a great compliment, but a compliment from Matthew Crawford is also a great compliment. So I think you're on the right track, and don't worry about the blithering idiots.
Yeah, I'm not, and it's interesting too because and I'll criticize myself on this. So I've got 2 super prompts up this week, and then I also have some stories where I talk about if then equals because. So I posted this. I posted a tweet where I actually went down and the Council on Foreign Relations. Actually, let me find the if then equals because. Here it is. So in this article, which is free, you don't have to be a paid member, I go through the pattern that I am writing about in my book. And I spent, George will be proud, I spent an entire day working on my book yesterday, writing for my book. And I specifically, this is a pattern that is used, I call it to frame magical spells, whereby you can completely change people's realities. And in linguistic terms of art, they call it a complex, they call it a cause-effect complex equivalency, which I think is a big mouthful. So I'm trying to simplify it by calling it an if then equals because statement. But at the bottom here, I give some examples. And you and I talked about this last week, and I went through the Ryan Holiday. We went through the Ryan Holiday thing. But if you scroll all the way to the bottom, I've got a Candace Owens example and some foreign affairs examples. And one of the things that seems to pop up for me is that people kind of skip to the examples and they don't really read the article, and I'll take the fault for not doing a sexy enough job of presenting the idea. But they wind up jumping to my examples and then arguing with the results of the examples instead of paying attention to the point that I'm trying to make in the first place, which is that there is this structure, there's this linguistic structure that I'm calling an if then equals because structure. And if you learn how to recognize it, you'll realize that it's a fallacy. It's a linguistic fallacy. And the second thing that you'll understand is that there are a bunch of different ways to represent the same information and argue about it. But at the end of the day, because none of them are really based on truth, then it's all kind of dog wagging. It's a wagging the dog scenario, right? And so what happens is that people will will look to the article, they'll skip to the examples, and then they'll start arguing with the dog wagging, with the tail wagging, instead of looking at the whole dog, which I'm trying to get them to look at the whole dog, and instead they're arguing with me about how the tail is wagging. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and anybody who's seen Wag the Dog knows that most of the deep state communication is backwards. So this is hopefully going to be a way to recognize when there's backwards thinking, that we can put the tail appropriately on the dog.
Right. And so here's a person, and she was catering to my ego and telling me how great my work was. And then she engaged with one of the examples. And I gave her kind of a cursory answer because I didn't really feel like getting involved in discussing the semantics of the tail wagging. You know what I mean? Because that wasn't the reason that I posted the story. And so I said, it feels like a rabbit hole that I don't want to spend too much time debating, and at which point she comes back at me and says, rabbit hole, human history is now a rabbit hole. Nah, mate, you're a coward, and you cannot defend your exclusively religious paradigm. Well, what I did is I made an epistemological relation to the dialectic, which I've done before on this show, which is that if we are in a divide and conquer space, which is a dialectic space is a divide and conquer space, then the epistemological solution as presented by Jesus was love your brother or love your neighbor and the golden rule, which are the antithesis of the epistemological attack that is created by divide and conquer. So it wasn't specifically religious, what I made. I mean, there was a religious reference, but if you followed me in my work, then you understand exactly what it is that I'm saying. And so I blocked this person because I just thought, okay, well, you've clearly gone after, you're like a pit bull who's grabbed onto the tail of the dog now, and you're calling me names, right? And accusing me of things. She's a great mind reader here. There's a lot of mind reading going on here, and epithets and ad hominems. But I just wound up reframing her, attack on me, and then I just posted it. So, I'm sure that she probably means well, but engaging on that level is probably not a great way to make friends.
What was the thing? The interpretation? Was it of the was it originally of the?
It was a. I think it was a Council on Foreign Relations tweet. I'd have to go back and find it. I think that what she did.
Something on the order of geopolitics is difficult, and we have to consider all of the cultural.
It was something about sending. I think it might have had something to do with the Philippines and sending troops into China or something like that. And she was making a claim that because she had a feminine way of looking at things, she would never think of sending troops in anywhere. And it's like, there were 14 different reframes, right? Picking troops was just sending troops, and she was attacking the argument that the Council on Foreign Relations was making that I contended was a fallacy in the first place. So she missed that whole part.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to get the context for what the reaction was.
Okay. I believe if I go to the if then, I believe it was one of these examples that I gave on the bottom that was about, or it could have been in Twitter about. This one is, if Trump is reelected, he is likely to upset the balance of civil-military relations. This one is Latin America, a boss. So I'm not sure it was this one or one of the ones that was on Twitter. So it might have been, I don't exactly know how to navigate Substack as well as I probably should know how to do. So it might have been in a note on Substack. So I'm not sure that I'll be able to go and find it. But if you click on these examples that I've given, here Foreign Affairs has said the Western Hemisphere is crucial to U.S. security, but Washington is unlikely to see progress in the region's problems unless it steps up its own investments in the region's law enforcement and defense forces. And then I give the 14 reframes. I'm not going to read them all here, but the first one just says, just because the Western Hemisphere is important to the U.S. security does not mean that military investments are the only way to address its problems. What if fostering education, economic development, and diplomacy were more effective? Okay, so there's 13 more of these. Actually, I'm not sharing the right screen. I apologize. I should be showing you this. Sorry. Apologize. Again, you get to all of these by clicking on my this article, Rewiring Your Beliefs. And for anybody who's watching, if you want to be able to try this yourself, I explain how to do it. And I explain how to recognize these things. And then at the bottom of the examples here, I have included right here the prompt that I use in ChatGPT, because since we're talking about AI. And if you can learn how to recognize this pattern, the if then equals because formation of a statement, then you can take this prompt that I'm giving everybody who's watching. Okay, just go to, this is a free post on my Substack, and you can take this prompt and you can take whatever tweet that whatever organization or person is making where they're using this frame, this linguistic frame, and you can put it in here, and ChatGPT will automatically generate the 14 reframes for you. So this is a super tool. Like this is, if you guys want to go do some real damage for people who are interested in the dogfight that is Twitter, here's a way that you can come up with 14 counterexamples for every stupid piece of information that you see posted on Twitter.
Excellent. Well, we covered the video super summarizer. We covered the 14 reframers.
Sleight of mouth.
Sleight of mouth. Yeah, the Ryan Holiday answer to Ryan Holiday's conundrums or whatever his tweets.
Yeah.
You want to do your other tool, or do you want to talk about the burgeoning?
My other tool, you mean the video tool? Or
do you want to talk about the emerging market for movie AI?
Well, yeah, let's go. We can go back to the movie thing, because when I look at your Substack and I look at you using AI to try to illustrate the points that you're trying to make. But one of the things that I think is great, and I'll share this Warden Cinematics video that I've watched it a couple of times. I haven't done it yet, but I am familiar with some of these tools. The guy who made those videos Oh, if it is a guy, I don't know if it's a guy or not because it's an AI voice. I assume that it's a guy because he goes over his statistics, and his audience is 99% men, and that's because he has these Playboy Playmate renderings of all of these women in these videos, and so I assume that that he's targeting like adolescent men or something like that. But you don't have to. I mean, you can choose your audience as well as anything else. But the point is that this is the YouTube channel Warden Cinematics, and if you go into playlists, I think behind the scenes.
How much YouTube?
Then the second video that he
Here's
has
everything.
here, I'm not going to play this. I'm going to just show everybody where it is. He goes through step by step how he makes these videos. Now, what I think is great about this is that he's taking movies, he's putting them within the frame of a 1950s movie. He's re-rendering them with these kind of Playboy idealized women, right? But if you go and you look at this video in the description below, he goes over every different step and every different tool that he uses to make this, and he describes exactly how he makes them in this. So one of the things that I think is really interesting about this as I'm watching it is kind of like my 2-page book idea. If we could take a lot of the really important concepts that we talk about on this channel, right, and squeeze those ideas into these 90-second scripts, and there are tools. I mean, ChatGPT, if you put in Cecil Rhodes, it's not going to give you Cecil Rhodes because it has the rules for it say, well, if it's a celebrity, we're going to stay away from that. But there are tools like Midjourney where you can put up a reference image, right? And to be honest, I haven't really exactly figured out how to use Midjourney. Maybe we should talk to Lee Stranahan about it because he seems to know how to use that. But there are tutorials. There's ways to learn how to do this. But I think that there's probably ways to put together short 90-second videos that tell a story. He explains how he gets ChatGPT to write the scripts. And that way you're pretty much sure that you have something that's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's going to hit all the points that you want, and it's going to be put together and constructed in a way that's like a Hollywood movie trailer. And this may be a way to kind of wake people up and get things going. The downside is that this is so available at this point as the way that this guy's put out. I mean, he hasn't made any secret of it. Like, here's all the ways that you do it. Here's the free script. You use ChatGPT to make a script. You use 11 Labs to narrate it. He gives links to rights-free music, including 2 different AI-generated services, one called Suno and the other one called Udio. And then you use Midjourney to create the images. You use another application that is called Runway to take those still images and then animate them. And then you use, and he gives a whole list of different ways that you could do it and things that he's tried. And then you put it all together in a movie like, in a program like Adobe Premiere. And you wind up with you wind up with this.
Into the future, where life is faster, funnier, and more futuristic than ever.
And I'm just thinking that, if we could retell the story of the Titanic and how it impacted the Federal Reserve, J.P. Morgan running to the dock as the Titanic sails away and takes his hat off and tips it,
Yeah, Danny Casolaro realizing that Israel or that Iraq wasn't the only people getting anthrax from Donald Rumsfeld, that it was
now you're talking, George.
The Iranians got it too from Ben Menashe. So
you could do your own version of the octopus.
Yeah, and I definitely think that I'm going to do it. I think we use 90-second clips. I tried one with this thing called Luma AI, and it was just the three snipers that abandoned their posts
Right.
at the Trump rally, and it's everything leading up to them abandoning their posts. So they're whittling, they're texting on their phone, they're uh, playing string games. That little cat's cradle game. They're doing all these things, and it took a long time. And I had to do 4-second clips, and I kept cutting back and forth to the 4-second clips because 4 seconds was the limitation. But this looks more like a 1-minute tool, like Sora AI.
Well, I mean, basically, what he's doing is that he's using Midjourney. Okay, so he's using ChatGPT to put together a tight script. Okay, and my pro tip to you would be make the scripts tight. Okay, make them have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, and then he's using GPT. GPT will suggest frames for the script. Like it'll give you, we've all seen these, movie scripts that are like, 8.5 by 11, 3-hole punch with brads and a colored cover and then colored sheets. And these are what the, actors and the directors have on the set. But before they make the script, there's usually a shooting script or what they call an AV script that's got the what's happening, either the dialogue or the action in one column, and then either like a storyboard frame in the other column where it actually shows you what the movie is going to look like, and that's the thing that the first AD will be carrying around with him, and so GPT will actually output something like that for you. It will tell you, okay, you need this shot, you need this shot, you need this shot. Then you go into Midjourney, you create still images that are like what you're looking for, and then you take it and you put it into this other program that is called, let's see what it's called. It's called
Runway, probably.
Runway, yeah. You put it into Runway.
Yeah.
Now, Runway is not free. I think he says it's $90 a month. But once you have them, there's other AI augmented programs too. There's one that I actually think I have bookmarked here, and I probably can pull it up. That is called.
If you look at that,
LeaPix. Here, I'll show you LeaPix.
okay.
And LeaPix will allow you to upload a picture, and it will turn it into you can either zoom in or zoom out, or you can do one of these side moves like this. So you upload an image that is a still image, and then it turns it into this kind of dimensional rendering, right? So this is free with a watermark. If you want to take the watermark off, I think it's like $10 a month or something. It's not that expensive. And this would be like the low budget version of Runway.
Yeah, and I think Google Lumiere is supposed to be a lot cheaper when it comes out. I've seen some Google Lumiere samples that look pretty impressive, and then ChatGPT, AI, OpenAI has the Sora tool, and it may be good to just show our viewers just a sample of like OpenAI / Sora SORA is pretty impressive. One I saw is and they're good. I think you're the director, but I mean, I think they're good for transition shots and just like for continuity. Like you're going to have a meeting of the spies at CIA headquarters, and there's dialogue between the two spies. But then you got to walk down the hall at Langley. You got to get in the car at Langley. You got to drive out to the remote place because we're going to be torturing Frank Olson, right?
Right.
So then you got to go to the remote cabin. Then you get into the remote cabin. Now we start torturing Frank Olson. But there's a lot of money spent between CIA headquarters and torturing Frank Olson. Here we go.
All right. So Let me see. Yeah, the thing is about Sora, though, is that I don't think it's publicly available yet, right?
Not yet. I think they're waiting till after the election because of they're afraid of
Because
AI.
they're afraid.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, in California, I guess they're going to make it illegal. Like if you post things that violate their sense of propriety, that they're going to come and arrest you for posting memes.
If you put Kamala Harris in any European city or capital, they know right away that's a fake. You know? So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They'll crack down on it.
Yeah, so this is all Sora. So this is all AI generated, and this is open AI. This is not Google.
Yeah, this is the freebie. And the reason I guess I like open AI is because I think the models, if you will, and we can get into what the models are consisting of, are just going to be richer with a lot more people playing with it because it has like a Google base of much, billions of pictures rather than, somebody else's walled garden of 100,000 pictures.
Yeah, although, what I like about the Super Panavision approach to doing this stuff is kind of like why I like the summarizer tools. There's a lot of people who use AI as a encyclopedia. And I think that that's a very dangerous thing to use as an encyclopedia. Mostly what I use AI for is to summarize or to go into books or videos that I'm using for my research. So, for example, if you ask OpenAI who's Cecil Rhodes, it's going to give you a Wikipedia definition of who Cecil Rhodes is. It's not going to give you Carol Quigley's point of view about Cecil Rhodes, But if you give it Tragedy and Hope or the Anglo-American establishment and start asking it questions about Cecil Rhodes, it's going to give you some better information. Mid-Journey, as far as I can tell, you can give it reference photographs. So I could give it pictures of Cecil Rhodes, and it would use those pictures in order to create scenes with Cecil Rhodes in them. If I tried to do that with ChatGPT, it won't do it because it's been told by its masters you can't do celebrities. If I give it to Grok, because Elon Musk has taken off the shackles and let it be free, it may give me something that looks like Cecil Rhodes, but it's not that good. It's better at some things than others, but ChatGPT, to your point, seems to have a lot more depth in its ability to problem solve, let's just say. However, Mid-Journey, I think you can give it a reference image, and there is a bit of a learning curve, and that's primarily the reason that I haven't gone to go look at it, because I thought, this is going to take me 2 days to do this. It's going to take me 2 days to figure out how to do it. And I should probably just take the 2 days and figure it out. But
I was just going to say, I think to me, the whole story, dialogue should be a synthesizer, right? You should be like, well, that's the end of my book, and that should tell you this person's been writing for a year for their book, right?
3.
Oh, okay, 3. Okay, but
Yeah.
If the dialogue between you and Lady Jessica is, well, that's the end of my book, and you type the end on your computer, and then you cut to Lady Jessica going, finally, or whatever, she's got some expression, but in a very short clip of dialogue, you summarize what's happened over the last 3 years. This has been a supportive producer, and you've been intently researching and all these things, right? But then, in order to move to the next scene, right, in order for people to picture where you live and the continuity of you going to meeting with Michael or whoever it is to produce a movie that you're going to do on the book, right? Now we've got to have you. I mean, you could, rent the whole craft,
Well,
know,
I'm
and
not. Look, I'm putting my book together right now. What I was working on yesterday is that I'm basically putting my book together in Keynote, because I'm making it into. I'm making each idea that I'm doing as a card. And the thing is about Keynote, and when you make movies, if you walk into a movie director's office, they'll have giant cork boards with 3x5 cards on them. Because when you're putting a movie together, you have a scene, each scene is a card, and you'll be sitting there with the producer and the first assistant director who is doing the scheduling, and the editor of the movie, and you're figuring out, okay, when are we going to shoot which scenes, and what order do we want these scenes to go in? Because a lot of times you'll write a script, and it makes sense to you when it's on the written page in the script. And then when you start to go shoot it and you start to analyze the performances and you start to say, you'll have one scene. For example, I'll give you an example. My favorite person in Hollywood, Meathead from Archie Bunker. What's his name? Wait, you're muted.
Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner, yeah. Rob Reiner is a great director and a terrible human being.
In that order.
In that order. So I only know this because I was at a party. I was at a party, and there's a funny aside to it. So I'm at this party. It's a Halloween party in 1985, and I was dressed as Colonel Kilgore from Apocalypse Now. I had the hat. I had the dark glasses, and I'm legally blind without my glasses on, and so I had the regulation aviator sunglasses that he's got on, and I'm in a party at night, so I can't see. So at one point, Charlie Sheen comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, I worked on that movie. That's a great costume. You look just like him." And I said, "Thanks." And then he walked away, and I turned to my friend and I said, "Who was that?" And they said, "Oh, it's Charlie Sheen." I couldn't tell who he was.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, but you did know the smell of napalm in the morning was a good thing. So
yeah. So I met this guy. His name was Rick Parnell. And he was an actor, and he was telling me, I said, "So what have you done?" And he said, "Well, I was in the movie Spinal Tap." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." And I go, "What did you play?" And he said, "I was the drummer in all 3 versions of their band." And I said, "Really? The one who got blown up?" And he said, "Yeah." Well, he goes, "That was actually a funny story." And I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "Well, that was the first scene that they shot in the movie. And they didn't have a very big budget for pyrotechnics. And so they really only had one shot at doing this scene where a Spinal Tap comes out and there's this giant pyrotechnic explosion. And the pyrotechnics guys did way too much. Like, it was way more than Rob Reiner had wanted. And in fact, when it went off, it was such a big explosion that it blew me off the stage. Well, they had blown their pyrotechnics budget right there. Like, that was it. And it had blown the drummer off of the stage. And that wasn't in the script, right? And so it was a great shot, right?
Yeah. And as long as the drummer lives, yeah.
The drummer lived. It was a great shot. And so then they had to figure out a way to rewrite that scene and put it back into the movie so that it made sense. And so they came up with the mythology of Spinal Tap that they kept going through drummers, right? They turned it into a gag. And so Rick Parnell played all the drummers, but he was in a different costume every time, and you didn't know who he was. That was never in the original script. That would only happen because there was this big explosion on the set. So anyway, but then here's where the story gets funny, George.
Pretty funny. The drummer's getting blown up. I think it's funny.
Okay, same party. So Charlie Sheen, Rick Parnell. Dallas Taylor comes up to me. Dallas Taylor is the only person who is not named in the band name Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Because Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young is Crosby, Stills, Nash, Young, and Dallas Taylor. And his name's not on his name. So
Echoes of Laurel Canyon.
Let's just say this guy had a little chip on his shoulder. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And I've had a couple of drinks. I'm having a good time. It's Halloween. And he gets introduced to me, and somebody says, "Oh, this is Dallas Taylor. He's the drummer from Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young." And I said, "Oh man," I said, "You're the second famous drummer that I've met at this party tonight." And I was thinking about saying, "You're the fourth famous drummer that I've met tonight," because I knew that Rick Parnell had played 3 drummers.
Oh, okay.
And he goes,
That really rubbed it in.
and he said, "Really, who's the other drummer?" And I said, "Rick Parnell." And he said, "Rick Parnell, I've never heard of him. Who's that?" And I said, "Well, he's the drummer for Spinal Tap."
Well,
yeah, that was the end of my conversation with Dallas Taylor. He was not going to have it. Yeah, that was it.
Dallas Taylor knew Spinal Tap was a fake band, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
So he was not happy. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, did Rob Reiner have you back for next Halloween?
No, it wasn't Rob Reiner's party. It was.
Oh, it wasn't Rob Reiner's party?
No, it was a models party on La Cienega. No. On Crescent Heights, which turns into Laurel Canyon. So it is right there. This apartment.
I figured, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I mean, that's right out of Laurel Canyon, right there.
Yeah. So this is like a 1930s apartment building. That's like an 8-story high building that was on like 2 blocks south of Sunset Boulevard on the west side of Crescent Heights. It's been there, like I said, it's been there since the 1930s. It's like a historic building.
Can you imagine it's called Mid-Frame is the tool? What is
Mid-Journey.
Can you imagine every Peter Duke Pulitzer Prize winning black and white photograph with Mid-Journey, and then you can make the model say something? They can say reframing reality.
Yeah.
You can have all the most famous.
Well, you can actually have them reframe reality.
Yeah, and they could be reframing reality one after another, and just reframe reality. And then the other one says Peter Duke, and then the next one says reframes reality.
Well, talking about reframing reality and actually reframing reality are 2 different things. So
that's too bad, because the models are going to have a much easier time just saying reframing reality.
But models do reframe your reality, and this is I was saying to Matthew. Was it Matthew? No, to Richard Grove on my interview with Richard Grove that I posted on my Twitter feed, that I was standing in the studio one day in 1985 looking into my Hasselblad, and I'd shoot 12 shots and then they'd change the back on the Hasselblad. And so I'm bending over. That's why I have such great posture, was like 20 years of shooting in a Hasselblad. It's not good for you. But I was looking in the camera and I was watching the models in the camera, and I'm pushing the button and I'm cranking the thing, and then I take another picture and I'm cranking the thing. And I'm thinking to myself, why is it that when I push the button here, somebody buys a sweater, and if I push the button here, they don't? Like, what is it about what I'm choosing? What I've learned, 5 or 6 years ago, hypnotists have something that they refer to as a micro expression, which is a subtle kind of change in somebody's face. It's the way they're holding their mouth. It's the way that they're looking at with their eyes. These are all called micro expressions. And what I realized 5 or 6 years ago is that I was very attuned to the micro expressions. But people looking at a picture identify with the person in that picture, and that's what makes them want to go do that. And it's interesting that they call them models, because I'm going to talk to Matthew Crawford tomorrow, and as we know, Matthew Crawford works with models, computer models, and there's something about looking at a model and then comparing yourself to a model, and the word that the people who came up with neurolinguistic programming come up with is models. They model people like Milton Erickson, or they model people like Gregory Bateson, to figure out what it is about the way that the structure of their words are put together and come out of their mouth, what the tone of their voice is, what the state of mind is that the person is in who's hearing the words at the time that they're using them. And this is all called modeling. So it's interesting how this word model comes up.
I think that's something that you should incorporate into your book. You know, um, I would have every like touche moment. You know, that you've used one of the 14 arrows from your, you know, from your logistics, or not your logistics, your linguistics quiver.
Right.
I would have a little short, you know, celebratory end zone dance for that particular, you know, rejoinder.
Well, I think, you know, so Matteo Morelli, who's the guy who kind of turned me on to sleight of mouth, is writing a new book right now, and he's reducing the number of reframes from 14 to 6. And the reason is because there's probably 6 that work more often than the other 8. They work better. And there's something about having 14 different patterns that you think that you need to understand or memorize that makes it seem intimidating. So Morelli points out that you should probably just learn how to recognize the cause-effect complex equivalency that I have rebranded and if then equals because, and then pick 1 or 2 of those reframes and learn how to do that one, and then add them one at a time. Like, okay, I know how to chunk up. I know how to chunk down. I know how to create a metaphor. You know, once you can do those things, then you can start to add to them.
I think I have like 3
Yeah.
that I do over and over. Well, one is comparison and contrast, and I can't remember what the other 2 are. But you know, it's amazing how far you can go on just comparison and contrast. Metaphor may be the other one that I use a lot. But
Yeah, I think metaphor you use a lot.
yeah, but my point is that, you know, it almost could be a video game. You know, it's like you reward people when they get somebody says something really stupid from Twitter that's a logical fallacy, and then which I know I did yesterday, but and then you have the rejoinder. You say, well,
it's hard. It's hard not to do it because that's how we've been taught to speak to one another.
right. I said yesterday.
And
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, I was just going to say, I said, I put all my money into citizen journalism. The reason why I didn't build the Taj Mahal is I didn't have enough money to build the Taj Mahal. But then I started with the complex false equivalence or complex equivalence saying, but what has the Taj Mahal ever done for you to save your democracy? Nothing.
Well, you stole my thunder there, George, because what I was going to say to you, which is something that you do, naturally, that I'm learning how to do, is you framed the same idea as a question. And one of the big, again, and I kind of liken this to a Platonic approach versus an Aristotelian approach. And it was funny because I said this in a chat and somebody was criticizing me going, oh, you mean Socratic? And it's like, fuck off. You know, really, like, you know what I'm talking about, and you're trying to get me on a detail because you're spurging out. Like, just fuck off, okay? You know what I'm saying. The point is that Platonic dialogues are organized as question and answer sessions where somebody will make a statement and then somebody will ask a question, which in a lot of cases begs another question, which begs another question, which begs another question. So this is the linguistic format of the Platonic dialogues. It's question, answer, and a lot of time it's question, 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 right? And what you just did is I explained to you what I thought was happening. I said something in an axiomatic way, which is more Aristotelian. And then you reframed it and you did it in a more Platonic way. The secret sauce of neurolinguistic programming, the reason that hypnotists or pickup artists are successful at what they're doing is because they're actively listening, and then they're taking their the question, they're taking their analysis that they've got going on in their head, and then they're turning it into a question that leads the person in the direction that they want them to go in. So it's not about saying, hey, you're wrong, I'm right, here's why. It's about asking the question that says, have you ever thought about it this way? Because it might mean this, right? And that is a much more persuasive way to move people in the direction that you want them to go in. And it's part of the reason why I'm almost abandoning Twitter at this point. Because Twitter is not a place where people are having conversations. It's a place where people are trying to own each other, or they're talking past each other.
Yeah, if you say, if you're mid-journey, where have you been, and where do you want to go? That's a much more open-ended. I mean, that's the way I would remember mid-journey. It sounds like you're on a journey, and you're somewhere in the middle, and
Right.
you know. And I think that's a way of getting, in a very short period of time, a way of really understanding who somebody is. You know, hey, you were a computer sales guy and you were doing technical stuff, but now you want to do citizen journalism. Wow, that's a metamorphosis, right? Or whatever. I was a fashion photographer, but now I'm an author. You know,
I mean, the way that linguists think about it is that if I asked you, George, how are you doing today? You'd say, I'm doing pretty good, Peter. But if I asked you to describe for me all of the things that you did today before you started the show, you have such a good memory, and most people have memories like this, that if you went into the amount of detail, the number of times that you brushed your teeth, the number of strokes that you had when you brushed your teeth, right? The amount of toothpaste that you put on your toothbrush. Like if you went into the details of everything that you did today to the greatest extent that you could remember it, it would take you longer to explain to me what you did today than it took you to live it. And so what we all do when we're speaking, what I'm doing right now as I'm talking to you, is that I take my entire experience of life and all of the things that I'm thinking about what I want to say to you right now, and I am deleting, I am distorting, and I am generalizing that language so that it fits into words that come out of my mouth, into this microphone, and into your ear, and that you understand what I'm saying. What people who are trained in neurolinguistic programming understand is that we all delete, we all distort, we all generalize all the time, because if we didn't, we wouldn't be able to fit our deep structure of our life into the number of words coming out of our mouth to explain it to people. With that weapon, with that understanding that we delete, and that's called the meta model, by the way. If we understand that we're deleting, distorting, and generalizing things all the time, then somebody who's an active listener can listen for deletions, distortions, and generalizations. And that in real time, if they've done a lot of practice, can formulate questions that leverage a deletion, a distortion, or a generalization, and get that person to A, answer more questions about their deep structure, and B, at the same time, put them into a little bit of cognitive dissonance. Because when we get caught deleting, distorting, or generalizing something, we get a little embarrassed. You know what I mean? We get a little, I guess I could have been more, I could have given you more information about that. Nobody did anything wrong, but it's a natural kind of reaction. It's a cognitive dissonance. It puts you into an alpha state a little bit. And if somebody is ready with a suggestion at that point, they can move you. Like George just moved. I don't know where he moved to. But anyway, so that, let me see if George comes back. Because otherwise I'm just talking to you. What?
And we are at the hour mark.
And we are at the hour mark, but I would like to get George's comment at the end. Let's see. He seems to have disappeared. Well, we had one comment from TS, which is GIGO, which is the first thing that I ever learned in the first minute of the first computer science class that I ever took. My professor, Corey, walked in and he wrote GIGO on the board and said, what does this mean? Garbage in, garbage out. And I think that what he's talking about is that the one of the things that you need to learn when you're learning how to use AI is how to talk to it. Because even though it's framed as a chat, and they call it Chat GPT, and they want to fool you into believing that you're actually having a conversation with a person, and you start using personal pronouns and things like that when you're talking to it, you're not. These are just command line prompts, and it's probably better to think of it as a command line prompt. Because you won't get frustrated. If you think that you're talking to a person, like, have you ever gone through these customer service? I know that I hear my wife going through this with different customer service things. She puts it on speakerphone, and I hear it. That it starts asking you a question and there's no right answer, and you start getting frustrated and mad. The reason you get frustrated and mad, the reason it raises your blood pressure and takes seconds off of your life, is because it's fooled you into thinking that because there's a voice, that you're dealing with a person. There's no person, okay? There's nobody there. It's a computer program that is splurging out bad information. So, we need to train ourselves to not think of these AIs as people. They want us to think of them as people because it meets their technocratic agenda of having AI replace God, basically. They want, there's 4 episodes of Star Trek that I watched where Captain Kirk beams down to a planet, and the entire planet is, I knew he'd come back. Let's see if I can find him. I knew you'd come back.
Sorry about that, Peter.
I've gotten better at just winging it, though.
Yeah, I
disappear.
appreciate that. I think what might be happening is I'm running out of disk space, maybe. I don't know.
All right. Anyway, TS said that GIGO, and I was explaining to people how you have to deal with these. We were talking about the meta model, but I quickly switched to talking about prompts and being specific with your prompts. And don't be fooled into believing that you're talking to a person, even though it's called ChatGPT, even though the way you get to Midjourney is through Discord. Like, thinking of it like you're talking to a person is going to make you frustrated in situations where maybe you shouldn't be, because you think you're dealing with a petulant 3-year-old who won't understand that you're asking them for ice cream,
Well, I heard what you were saying, and I'm sorry about my computer dying. I think these AI tools do eat up, unfortunately, when you create a lot of imagery, they do eat up hard disk space. So,
well, you'll notice that on my Buy Me a Coffee, George, the only one thing that I've asked people to help me out with, and shout out, thanks to all of the people who have helped me out. And by the way, I need to go out and do that soon, because before the show started, my hard drive was making noises. But is hard drive? I need bigger. I need bigger hard drive. I need more storage
capacity.
Yeah.
Well,
but video is worse, George.
Oh, video is much worse. Yeah. So I'm interested in doing the Midjourney stuff because I've created a lot of AI, like the one behind me. We had a meeting with our actors and actresses, virtual and real.
Oh, for those books.
Yeah, for Indio, and they wanted the real and virtual actors wanted me to start it at the Indian reservation. They wanted me to start Danny Casolaro with Indio in his shoe with the bloody note, the key to the whole case. And I basically said, that's not what Casolaro is about. Netflix is all wrong. It's about anthrax in Iraq and anthrax in Iran. And that's why Bob Maxwell was killed. And that's why, she married a dummy who only could do sexual compromise because she couldn't find a guy as smart as her dad, Ghislaine. And that's really what the story is. And so we had this actors revolt. And how else do you characterize or show people what an actors revolt is on an Indian reservation other than a bunch of, Custer type situation with Indians surrounding you from every and this is me being part Indian, so I think 256 times more than Elizabeth Warren. So I have the key frames already developed, and it would be great if they would show the Indians closing in. I mean, this is a way of creating your own Western. I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of key frames.
Right.
So I'm interested to see what I can do to create stories out of all the key frames.
Right. I got a couple comments. Pippi B, who's a big supporter of the show, said, I like to teach the AI what Jesus said. The AI there's a few things that the AI does know. The AI knows the Bible. I'm not sure which version. I don't know if it knows the Vulgate or the King James. I'm guessing it probably knows the King James. But one of the things that GPT, I've done this before, and I should probably publish it, is you can ask GPT, detail the epistemological lessons of the Sermon on the Mount. And it will do that. And it will analyze the sermon, the Matthew. It'll analyze the Sermon on the Mount, and it will spit out all the epistemological lessons. And this is part of the, what leads me to the idea that if you go back long enough in history, that the powers that be, who are control of the world right now, their latest iteration of divide and conquer is, the Hegelian dialectic or the Marxist dialectic. It's a cultural version or a power-based version of divide and conquer, right? It's divide and conquer based on race, or divide and conquer based on sexual identity, or divide and conquer based on blah, 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 blah. And if you look at the epistemological analysis of the Sermon on the Mount and the Gospels, it's antithetical to divide and conquer. To love your brother, love your neighbor in the golden rule, that's the opposite of divide and conquer. And so you have this dichotomy, and I know that I'm down on people who put together false dichotomies, so I'll reframe it as, I think you have this polarity where you've got the divide and conquer people on one end of the pole, and you've got the love your neighbor, golden rule people on the other pole. And I can also, and I've got this in a PowerPoint slide. You can also say that that's Jesus and Satan. You can also say that it's natural law people versus anti-human, the anti-human forces, the theosophists, for example. So there's different ways that you can couch the same idea. But this all started with AI and GPT and what Jesus said. GPT, you could do things with, like, it knows Shakespeare. You can go, and I've done this, I'll publish it. You can go in and say, what are the categorize all of Shakespeare's plays by meta theme. It will go and do a meta theme. It does George Webb really good. It does metadata analysis really good. If you give it something and ask it to analyze it for the meta themes, it will do a really good job. So, it will come up with the, Matthew Crawford was talking about the Rajneeshis or whoever they were up in Oregon who were poisoning salad bars. But when I started reading the details of what those people were doing on the local government levels, I saw that on a meta level. I thought, oh, that's Milner's kindergarten. That's what they were doing in South Africa. Now they're doing it in Oregon. George Webb says that patterns, once you understand the pattern, you can see it here, you can see it here, you can see it here, you can see it here. So GPT is actually really good at doing meta patterns. And for things like Shakespeare and the Bible, those are already in there.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things we've touched on is tragedy and hope and whatnot is that, or Yale University or whatever, is the project for a new American century really isn't the project for a new American century. It's really the project to renew the Anglo-American empire, right? It's really a bunch of CIA sellouts from Eastern schools that have met with a bunch of Oxfordians and Cambridgians, right? That have decided they're the smart guys that are going to determine the future of the world. And that's going to be this new world order. But it's important to understand what new order that they have in mind, right? And it's an Anglo-American empire. And then from once you determine what
it's an Anglo-American oligarch's empire.
Yeah, it's even more exclusive.
That's dressed up in a democratic republic suit, skin suit, or wolf in sheep's clothing, as it were.
And that's my thing about the bioweapon, the selective bioweapon, is the selective bioweapon, the Prince Philip virus. It's this perfectly selectable thing that will take out everybody that we don't want and just keep the ones we want. And it explains Iran, Iraq, Africa, ever since the Suez Canal, right? It explains everything. And that's why we keep repeating these experiments. Coronavirus, let's aerosolize anthrax. And that's the theme that that's the meta theme for me, is in all my stuff, is how are these keepers of the Anglo-American enterprise dream or empire, what are they doing this week? What are they working on this week?
And in order to figure that out, all you have to do is look at history, but you have to look at the real history. You can't look at the history that they've spoon-fed you by virtue of the fact that they've had Rhodes Scholars rewriting our history books for 100 years, and it's, I don't want to be mistaken. I use the word British a lot. I don't mean the subjects who don't have any agency, who live in Great Britain. I'm talking about the people who own millions of acres of land, right? Who have their initials on every airplane and tank and ship.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the American people need to understand that the big problem that we have in America is that people still believe that we're electing the government. Are Donald Trump and Kamala Harris really the best people we could come up with? I was watching Massey last night. True Stream Media had a video, Melissa and Aaron Dyke's new video, and the last 10 minutes of it is Massey basically calling bullshit on the continuing resolution nonsense that's been going on since 2008, 2012. It's been going on for over 10 years. Congress has one job, which is to pass a budget. They haven't done it in over a decade. Nobody on television ever talks about that.
It's like that game of Kerplop, where you pull out one of the straws real slow so you don't want all the marbles to fall. Right. Each continuing resolution is kind of like that.
Right. So Massey had a great speech, but Massey should be the president of the United States. He should be the leader of one of the parties, but he's not, because he doesn't participate in the self-licking ice cream cone. And the media is owned by the people who run the self-licking ice cream cone. So that's not going to happen. I'm going to put one more comment up here, and I'm going to ask if anybody's got any questions, ask them now, because otherwise I'm going to tell everybody how to support this show and support George Webb.
Let's do that.
George Webb. JBGT3 says, SSD, Peter, I have older hard drives that just died of old age. Here's the thing. I hear you. It's budget, okay? If somebody wants to give me $5,000 to do what I can do with $1,000 with spinning disks, I'll go get the SSD. So I'll tell you right now, if you want to help the Duke Report out and buy me a 24 terabyte mirrored SSD array, I'll take it. Okay. But short of that,
how are you going to heat your home this winter then, if you take out all those hard drives? Because that's one thing. When I did stay in the Duke residence, there is a hum. There is a noticeable hum.
It's a small heat. Yes, they're small heaters. So And the thing is too that you have to understand about SSD is all disks. I don't care if they're SSD or spinning platters or whatever they are. If you go to, you used to be able to go to Fry's. I don't know if Fry's even exists anymore. But on the side of the box, when you buy a hard drive, it has this number that's MTBF. George knows what MTBF is, right?
Mean time between failure.
Mean time between failures. Buying a hard drive is like buying tires for your car. Okay? They will wear out. They just do, because they have a lifespan. And so anytime you've got data, you've got to put it away. And, you know, I mirror all my hard drives. I'm in the mistake of doing RAID 5 for a long time. But then I had a RAID drive 5 failure. And that was just a nightmare. Doing data recovery, it costs thousands of dollars. So now I just mirror my drives. RAID 1, is that what it is? One is striped and one is mirrored. Anyway, that's what I do. So if somebody wants to buy the Duke Report, 24 terabytes of mirrored SSD storage, I'll gladly take it. Otherwise, I'm going to take the money that's been donated to buy me a coffee, and I'm going to buy two 24 terabyte drives, and I'm going to swap them out in my housing that I've got, and then just continue from there. So with that, I'm going to say, if you want to support the Duke Report, you can go to thedukereport.substack.com, and you can become a member there. I am going to announce in the next week or so some new improvements that I'm going to make for members of the Duke Report, because I've been remiss since I started this thing. It's been hit and miss, and I haven't been good at it, and I'm going to get my act together. You can also go to thedukereport.com/shop, and you can buy T-shirts. You can buy my book if you go to Amazon and look for, or go to this link down below. You can do that. If you want to support George Webb, George has two. I've only got one of them up on the page underneath him, because he's got georgewebb.substack.com, but he also has gwebb.substack.com. You can support George there. And you could also go to buymeacoffee.com/GeorgeWebb1 no E, or paypal.me/George Swigert, or venmo.com/GeoWebb, and you can support George and his journalism there. And
Zoom.
What?
Zoom.
Oh, my wife has reminded me, Zoom call on Saturday. So it's Tuesday. I'm going to do a Zoom call for members of the Duke Report on Saturday. And I'm probably going to start doing regularly scheduled Zoom reports, Zoom calls more often. We're just working out the logistics on all that. We've been dealing with a lot of craziness here at Duke Report Central. And I'm not pointing to the cross or the pitchfork. I'm pointing to the ceiling above me. And today, thank God, the person who lives up there has gone on vacation or something, so that there's a little blessing there. Anyway, with that, George, I will tell you that I will see you on Tuesday, and if not sooner.
Great. Sounds awesome, Peter. Thanks for another great show and a lot of learning. You always amaze me.
All right, and if you got any more questions about AI, just ping me. Talk to you soon, everybody. Bye.
Thanks.